Good morning, guys. It's a grade 9. Today, inshallah, we're going to start in section 2 of chapter 19, ecological successions or ecological succession. So, actually, here, after we finished chapter 18 and we understood the different interactions that could happen between living organisms, and then section 1 of chapter 19, we understood how matter is cycled in the nature and how the matter is somehow is conserved but just alternate from one form to another. So all these could show to us that actually the nature in a dynamic movement which include a lot of changes that happen over time, whatever these changes could found to the non-living factors or the abiotic factors of the nature and also to the biotic which are the living organisms. So today we're going to talk about another way of the changes that happen. We call this ecological succession. So first of all, here let's start by this one. We ask: imagine that you have been hired to oversee the maintenance of a public forest. So you just gonna be the manager of this forest. You just check if this forest is healthy or not. So how could you gonna evaluate if this forest is healthy or not? So I may or I could predict your answers that you're gonna just check about the number of the trees and different living organisms, the rate of their growth, and the diversity which is found. That means is a diversity of living organisms or not. So actually, if the answer of these questions was positive answer, that means there is a diversity. They're already growing healthy and they're growing in the normal rate. So it means that this forest is healthy. So we ask what actions will take to keep the forest healthy. So to keep the forest healthy, just you're gonna so some of you are gonna say maybe we are gonna not cut trees, we will not hunt animals, okay? We will not cause pollution. So all these answers are true. All these others just concerned about the one thing that keeping the environmental conditions as the same or don't disturb the environmental conditions, don't disturb the balance which is already found in that ecosystem. Because once you disturb this balance, of course, you're gonna find that the forest will not be healthy anymore. That will lead major changes in that forest. So actually, my question now, if you keep watching this first and you try to keep it this balance and you keep observing for many years, a long time, do you think it will this first will be the same all that time? So of course the answer will be no. Okay, you're gonna observe some changes. These changes already happen naturally, even you try to keep the balance, because already there are some changes that happen by nature itself. Okay, that means some environmental conditions, change in the fertility of the soil, migration, immigration of living organisms, and so on. A lot of changes that could happen actually that could lead to some changes that happen in this first. So actually, we're going to observe that the first will change over time. So in that lesson, we're going to talk about the ecological succession. What mean by ecological succession? So simply, ecological succession, it means, okay, so guys here, okay, ecological successions, guys, it means the change of the pure land. That means, for example, or that we say that it's kind of a change that's happening in an area over time. This is a change we are gonna observe. There is some living organisms, okay, they replace other living organisms, okay. So here we said that succession, the replacement of one type community by another or a single place or a certain area over a period of time. Usually this period of time is a long time. Community, to remember, is just a group of different populations. That means we are gonna find that a place, this place over time is gonna have certain communities. After period of time, another community is replaced the first communities, then another community is replaced the second, and so on. These communities replace each other due to the change that's happening already in the nature or in the environmental condition in that place. We call this succession. So here, guys, let's find. For example, he give you an example. The regrowth of a forest after the forest fire is an example of succession. Okay, succession takes place in all communities, not just those affected by disturbance or just for that mean it's not must or it's not must be to have a kind of natural disaster to start succession. Even in balanced environments, they, over time they perform succession or succession could happen even in balanced environment. So to clarify the idea, what is succession? Okay, let's find the idea. Here, for example, we find maybe in a certain place there is kind of plants that is already dominating this place and it's found in large numbers. After a while, the nutrients which are necessary for this plant is not available that much. So the plant somehow is going to decline or their numbers will decrease. That means all of them will die. As they die, they are going to break down, which once they break down, they are going to return into nutrients to the soil. So the soil fertility will increase. Once the soil fertility increase, that will cause it, or that will be a good conditions for a rise of new or higher plants, because seeds come from everywhere, by the air or even some animals, insects, blah blah. So once seeds, okay, they form the ground, which already is fertile and have a lot of nutrients, they will grow. So after a while, we're gonna find this higher plants already succeeded, okay, or they already somehow replaced that first type of plants. So that's kind of succession happening. So actually, we have two types of two major types of succession: primary succession and secondary succession. So what are the difference between them? We're gonna know this in the next session, but we're just gonna talk about the primary succession. So what is primary succession? Primary succession actually it's a kind of succession in which a bare land, that means land without nothing, even there is no fertile soil, no soil, okay, to support life, that change over time or that's after a long period of time turn to be a forest. That could happen, yes, it could happen, okay? We're gonna find what happens here. So simply we're gonna find we start by bare land, just rocks. These rocks may be a igneous rock. They are produced from volcanic eruptions or something like that, or even rock that completely covered by snow or glaciers or like that. So these harsh conditions, or that's actually cannot support kind of life, because as you can see there is no fertile soil that could cause plants to grow or something like that. So it's a bare land, nothing, even there is no suitable soil. What happens here? We start to get something called pioneers. What are the pioneers? Actually, pioneers, it means the first, number one, okay, species. That means the first species could survive in a place or a certain area. We call this a pioneer species. So once we talk about pioneer species, you're gonna think about the normal kind of living organism which we know. So you're gonna talk about animals, plants, but actually animals, plants cannot live in some area like that, because there is no even soil for plants to be able to grow. So if plants cannot grow, so of course animals cannot grow because animals depend on plants. So in that case here, even animals and plants. So here we need more tiny living organisms or some living organisms, which we call them the lichens or lichens. Okay, so these living organisms kind of fungi and algae they could grow together. So we find this kind of fungi. They are gonna just make producing acids. These acids will start to break down the rocks, okay, and they are gonna break down rocks time over time over time. So they turn into small pieces. Within that time, some of these lichens already die. So the fungi keep breaking down the lichens, which because there's remains to mix with these small pieces of rocks. So like this, we start to get a soil, or we start to form a soil. So here, once we start to have a soil, this soil has just a little amount of nutrients. After time, the nutrients will increase gradually that support more developed form of life, which are moss. Okay, so mosses, okay, they are a primitive form of plants. So now the amount of the nutrients in that soil enough to grow of mosses, so mosses will grow and keep growing. Eventually, the mosses will be too much, and the nutrients will not that supportive for them. So some of them will grow die, and they will be okay decomposed, and their nutrients will mix with the soil, increasing its fertility. So now the soil is more fertile. In that case, okay, maybe seeds come from anywhere, from the winged insects, blah blah. In that case, okay, that's what the soil will support the growth of small grass or bushes and something like that. And of course, that will attract some kinds of birds, insects to live in that area. So like this, we find that the area developed after time and time, as this grass and bushes dies, and a lot of organisms like insects or animals that now are found in the area die, their remains will be passed to the soil, increasing its fertility. So at a certain time, the soil will be fertile enough to grow higher trees. So we could observe that here the lichens actually they are replaced by mosses, okay, and the mosses they are replaced by grass or bushes, and so then the grass and bushes they are finally replaced by trees and so on. So like this here, we call that primary succession. We start from nothing to everything, all the highest diversity. So this process could be in balance for a long time. Within this balance, this kind of replacement or succession that happen, okay, even at certain time, maybe due to an environmental conditions or natural disaster or something change like that, this forest will break down or just gonna okay damaged, and in that we're gonna start a new way, okay, or a new type of succession, which is a secondary succession. That's what we're gonna talk about next time, guys. So it's very easy part. Okay, just study from your textbook, and if you have any question, I'm waiting for your questions. Thank you and goodbye, guys.